Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Coach Tyler, and I'm here with the lovely Dr. Lisa. How are you, Lisa?
I'm Peachy. How are you?
Peachy.
Peachy.
Ooh, I'm Apple. I don't know.
Okay,
Maybe that
that
works or
works.
not,
I
but
don't know.
yeah, okay. So bad dad jokes. I get it. Sometimes it happens.
You're good at them.
But you know what? Today is a fun day. We have a repeat guest on the show today. And I would love to kick this off with a post that I saw, this guest post, because it spoke to me in a really beautiful way. And I think we can make a lot of the conversation we're about to have really focused around these topics here. And I would love to read this for everybody because I think it's important. So this post said 4 reminders about your body. Number 1, weight gain is not a moral failing. Number 2, your weight has nothing to do with your worth. Number 3, bodies are meant to change. And number 4, your body is not your life's purpose. Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
So without further ado, I would love to welcome Abbie on the show. How are you?
Good. Can you hear my dog? Can you hear my dog? There's his tail.
He's very
Sorry
excited
about
for you
that.
to be
So
on the
how
show.
are we? We're good. I have
great.
one dog. I have one dog upstairs, just trying to keep them separated. They get the feet off of each other. But yeah, here we are. He's barking anyways, so my attempts failed. It's okay. I'm practicing
Such is life.
self-compassion as we speak right now.
That's okay.
Yeah. So what was the question?
How are you?
Well, how about we
Oh,
say,
gosh.
welcome to the show, Abbie.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
You know what? Thank you for having me. I've actually been looking forward to this all day. You both are so wonderful, and I've been connected over Instagram for a while. I've had probably years now, which is kind of, wild to say, but with Dr. Lisa, and I just love everything Lisa stands for. I've had Lisa on my podcast, and we had an
Yeah.
amazing conversation about perfectionism and releasing that and busting myths about joint pain and weight. So I don't know. I'm really happy to be here. I really, really am.
We're happy to have you.
Well, let me start off by just saying, maybe you can give us a short rendition of your story. How did you get to the place where you're making posts like the one I just read?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that you just framed that in a wonderful way, because I think that question is a hard question to kind of dial into, and actually you framing it around that post. How did I get to being able to write something like that? Frames it really nicely for me. I think that my whole life I think the core of it is that I've struggled with chronic illnesses most of my life. And so I come at this work both from having had an eating disorder, and I think another part of the identity that my body has held in my life is an athlete. I was an athlete very much, like that was who I was. But I also was this person who had all of these invisible illnesses. And I think that's what a lot of people who struggle with chronic illness end up feeling, is like a lot of these things just can't be seen. And I know that both of you talk about this on this podcast all the time, really, about like what is health, and health is not just something we can see on a body, right? And we really need to dismantle that belief. And so I think having had so many chronic illnesses, I did really feel deep down this like brokenness between me and my body for a long, long, long time, kind of this betrayal feeling, which is frustrating as an athlete when you're younger, right? You like want your body to perform for you, and you want to control it in that way. And then when you develop an eating disorder, I say me, but I think a lot of people feel this way too. I'll speak for myself. I felt like that was another attempt at controlling my body. And more than that, though, what I've learned is it was really just an attempt at gaining some sense of safety in the world, like feeling like I had any control at all. And so I think, for a long time I was actually in health policy. I was working in health tech, and I didn't get into nutrition and body image work until I decided to go back to grad school after having kind of healed from the eating disorder, really left the athlete kind of experience behind. I went back to school. I'd already found like the health at every size paradigm. I'd been introduced to anti-diet, intuitive eating approaches. And so I went back to school through that lens, wanting to get my graduate degree in nutrition, and then help people in this way. And it was a really frustrating experience to go back to school having already had that lens. Lisa, yeah, you're nodding. Yeah. Because the medical weight bias and weight stigma that's embedded in like a graduate program in nutrition or medical school or physical therapy or it's very weight centric. Teaches you to have assumptions about people. So that was a hard experience. But here I am now, and I love what I do so much. And I really believe everything I said in that post. I believe that, and I do believe it's some of the hardest, bravest work that any of us will ever do. And so I don't think that we can ever minimize that and highlight that enough.
Right.
Yeah. You mentioned something that really touched me there in that short, intro to who you are. And that is that so many of us find safety through control, right? We think that by doing, it makes us more valuable and we feel more safe. Can you speak to that so that people can really get in touch with that? Because I think that's an experience a lot of us have, and maybe we're not even aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're taught it, right? Like we're taught that productivity and worth and value look a certain way, whether it's a certain body or a certain job or a certain way that your home looks, or the way your kids act or your pets or whatever it is, like quote unquote discipline and hard work, they kind of result in some perfect output that we're supposed to have. And other people are supposed to see it and we're supposed to feel it. And it's much like the happiness fallacy, right? Like, I will feel better when I have this, I have that body, I have whatever. And so we're told, like, if you're just working hard enough, which is like AKA controlling all the things that we're told we can control, that we'll be okay. And there's safety in that. Like, there's safety in the message that diet culture sells us, that if we just lose weight or we eat a certain way, like, they're not just saying health, they're saying people will love you. You'll live longer. You'll love yourself. Like, these are really deep things that it's not so simple. I think we come at these experiences we have with our body or with food or with exercise and like just are frustrated with ourselves. Like, why can't we get over this? It's because it's not really about those things. It's about safety.
Yeah. It really is. And that's the deeper sense that I don't know, maybe I always say diet marketers are very brilliant because they speak to the core of what we really want. But they frame it in such a way that it's so superficial because it is, you will have the life that you want. You will no longer be fat and sad and alone and poor. And, you will follow our program and you will be thin and rich and happy and find love. And it's like, we know cognitively that shit does not happen. But the images that we've been fed for so long, it's hard to like unsee it and unlearn it and not believe it. And even if you don't buy into the full, schema of like it's going to be all this, you still think somehow my life will get better if I just follow this, if I engage this discipline, if I get serious about it, if I just focus and just push hard. And I mean, I did it for years and years and years and years. I always tell people, like, I am very good at following rules. Like, I can be the most disciplined person in the room. And I've done it and I've done it and I've done it. And I still didn't find any of that happiness they said was on the other side.
It's so true. The fitness industry tells us that if you can just learn to do my program, you'll be happy. You'll feel good about yourself. Yeah. And I think the message is the opposite. I think is that if you can just learn to listen to yourself and to connect with yourself, that's what actually makes you feel happy.
Yeah.
Fully agree with all both of you just said. And, Lisa, what you were saying, you've done done it and you know how to follow rules. And you know what I find too is that like after a while, we're not just chasing after some dream anymore when we're following all those rules. Like we're almost just like taking scraps eventually. Like,
absolutely.
do you know what I mean? Like we're just trying to get by eventually. Yeah. And like it becomes so ingrained in us that like kind of going back to what you were asking before about the control piece, like it ultimately does end up just being like, oh my God, how do I just get through the day feeling okay? Mm-hmm. Like, and if I can just do this thing and do this thing and like these rigid behaviors that do make me feel like at least I've done something.
Right.
Then we're kind of grasping at straws and it's no longer even about maximizing or optimizing. It's just about surviving. And that's what diet culture keeps us, diet culture, other systems, all the systems, right? Just keeps us grasping at this like, well, this is, this is all you deserve. So,
It starts so optimistically, though, doesn't it? Right? Like, oh, I'm just going to do this thing, and I'm going to do this thing, and it's going to make me feel happy, and then I'm going to do this thing, and then it, like I said, it transforms into if I don't do this thing, then I don't even feel safe, and then it's like so obligatory. You're stuck in this weight of obligation around feeling like you have to show up a certain way until you just crumple. And it's at that moment we have to ask that question, like, what is really going to bring me peace? What is really going to bring me a better connection with myself? And I'm curious, in the work that you do and working with people, what is the thing that you see helps people tip over from that crushing sense of obligation to actually being able to say, wait a second, what do I need to feel good? And actually showing up for themselves from an authentic place.
I think that it is acknowledging that we are suffering. I think we don't do that. We don't do that because we're trained to just try to fix it. Right, like either everything's fine and we push through, we white knuckle, and that's, what all sorts of things, dieting teaches you that, like how to just get through, right? White knuckle. But other things do too, and so does that kind of constant self-loathing or like beating yourself up, trying to motivate yourself to do things. I think that you have to not only just acknowledge that what you're doing isn't working for you, like it's not bringing you the life that you want, you have to acknowledge that you're suffering and that it's hard, because that's how we can enter into a more self-compassionate relationship with ourselves. Like we can't practice compassion towards ourselves if we don't validate the fact that we're struggling. Like that's the first step, So I think in how do we even start making that shift? It's like you have to notice that having a body is hard. And the answer probably isn't being mean to yourself. But like in order to get there, you have to realize that, it's not, you don't feel good. Like you have to kind of say that out loud, like this doesn't feel good. And I'm suffering and I need help, from myself, from other people. So I think that's the very first thing that has to happen. And how often do any of us pause and like actually acknowledge our own suffering? We do that with friends, right?
Yeah. Checking in.
We say, if they say like, oh my God, like they come to us and they tell us this awful day they had, I think the most validating thing we can say to a person we love when that happens is not like, oh, here's 20 solutions. It's, oh my God, that sounds so hard and I'm so sorry, and we don't do that for ourselves. So I think that's just step one.
We don't do that at all. Like, and I think there's a reason we don't. I think we've just normalized the suffering. Like we think it's supposed to be hard. Like, listen, you want to get healthy, you just got to suck it up and keep going. And like you said, white knuckle it. But that is the opposite of self-compassion. And I'm so glad you brought up how we speak to our friends, because you're right. Just validating their experiences. Why don't we validate our own? Why don't we say like, I just did a lot. I've been doing a lot. It's exhausting. Like, and it's been really hard. We just don't give ourselves that thing, and I think that's really important.
I cannot overstate how important I think that is. And I think there's this thing that goes on where most of us want someone else to see our suffering.
Yeah.
Right? They want, see my suffering. Why don't you see my suffering? And then somebody's, because you don't see my suffering. And it bounces around and around. And I think that the moment we acknowledge the depth of suffering that most of us experience at some points in our lives is the moment we plant that seed of self-compassion. And when we let that grow, self-compassion turns into the capacity to have compassion for others. It's like, see me, I'm in suffering. I can't because I can't see myself. And it's like the moment we begin to see ourselves is the moment we begin to allow ourselves to potentially see others as well. I saw that years ago and I can't unsee it. And I'm so happy you brought that up, because I just really feel like it's one of those root things that we need to do in order to create a more healing environment in the world itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think like when we don't validate our own suffering, it's kind of like ignoring, our own pain. Like if you were to ignore like your dog or your kid or your partner, or your best friend, like crying out to you for help, right? Like just that's what we're doing, and I think it shouldn't sound so wild to be kind to yourself. That shouldn't sound so radical. And yet it does, precisely for what both of you were just saying, is like we are told that the suffering is kind of the norm. And Lisa, you saying that reminds me of like also when you present this to people as perhaps a path to maybe explore, right? Like being nice to yourself. There's a lot of resistance because I think that's the defensiveness you might come up against people who are like, why can't everyone just be healthy like I am? I try hard. I eat the right things. I exercise. So everybody should just do that. Like, it's like you're directly threatening the fact that they think that they've somehow earned their health or something. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I absolutely know what you mean. It's an assault to their whole way of life, and it feels like, wait a minute. I felt this way when I was starting to see the damage that diet culture was doing in my own life. Initially, it's like, wait, hold on. Like, there is no way. I've been doing this wrong for 15 years. I am smart. Thank you very much. And then it's like, and you get confronted with it, hopefully, over and over again, and it makes you really go inward and kind of check yourself. And once the curtain is pulled, like, you can't unsee it. And it's like, oh, but at first it feels like someone is slapping the taste out of your mouth and just taking all of the things that you thought were safe and smart and right and good. And, my morality was built into my fitness and health and wellness routine. So you take that from me and I'm like, whoa, hold on. Like I lose my moral standing as a human. I've been telling people to do these things for years and now I'm not. It's scary, and it is a whole assault to your identity when that is what you've established your identity under. So I get it. I can relate. I have a lot of compassion for people when they're struggling to kind of let go of that mentality because I've been there. But it is really hard when you've been conditioned to believe that's the way life should be. And, I blamed people for their conditions all the time. All the time. I didn't necessarily always yell it out loud because I wasn't just a cruel human, but I thought it within myself. Like, man, if they just worked out, if they just, and it's like, that's not how the world works. Like, it's not it's not how health works.
I know, but that's what we're taught,
Yeah.
And I think that's why when we have these messages out there that are like, if you eat this way, you will cure such and such illness, or if you just exercise like this, you'll prevent, X disease, right? I think what that actually ends up doing is to anyone who out there who does have that chronic illness, who does have that disease, is suffering in some way, it actually, what that says is you did this to yourself. Because if there's a way to eat right, to cure something, or to exercise right, to avoid something, then if you have that thing, you did something wrong. You didn't eat the right things. You didn't do the right stuff. And so it creates this culture of self-blame and shame, and I see that so much around chronic illness. I know I experienced that. Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, why do I have these things? But then we see that more broadly with all sorts of conditions and all sorts of experiences, even like just mental health. Like the shame and the blame and the guilt around all of that, because we live in a culture that says like, well, you shouldn't feel that way, and if you do feel that way, then what are you doing wrong?
Yeah. The culture makes us feel broken.
Yeah.
right?
Totally. And where's
It says,
self-compassion when
if
you feel that way?
Right.
Yeah.
If you're not this, then something's wrong with you. And you need to fix that. And here's my solution to fix that for just $9.95 a month, you know?
Here's my supplement.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, if people aren't helping you come closer to yourself, right? If we're not trying to like help people connect with themselves, if it's about this guru mentality or this one size fits most approach, it's probably not an approach that's actually rooted in something that's trying to serve you. It's probably rooted in trying to serve whoever's on the other side of that.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you help people make that leap? How do you help people make that leap? Because I think that we've been sold this lie, right? That we'll be happy when we look this way, and in order to feel motivated, I have to shit all over myself. And when
We
people
call it tough love.
Yeah, tough love, no pain, no gain.
Such a nice
right?
term.
I know, yeah. So when somebody's in that moment where they're looking at this and they're like, this isn't working, like maybe they have that hint of it not working. Like how do we help guide them towards more self-compassion and kindness and connection?
Well, I think that one of the wonderful things about self-compassion is that it's not something we're born with, right? It's not like a personality trait. So it's a skill. It's literally a skill that we can build. And I think that's really powerful for people to recognize. And look, I think we have to right size this and set expectations, because there are going to be all sorts of hard moments for the rest of our life, right? Like, we are not trying to no longer have hard experiences, because there's no cure for that. Like, there's no cure for the human experience if you want to keep humaning, right? Like, but what we're trying to do is reorient ourselves to those hard experiences, to build resilience through them, to not spiral into shame and self-blame. So the skills we're building aren't to avoid the pain of being human. They're to navigate the pain of being human without self-destructing, you know? And so I think if we can continue, and we have to keep reminding ourselves that, because every time shit hits the fan, it does feel like, oh my God, I'm failing at this whole self-compassion thing. I suck at being nice to myself, right? Like, so we have to remember, like, no, the hard stuff, that's inevitable. Like, but if we don't start reorienting ourselves to that, then we're going to keep getting stuck in this cycle of people selling us bullshit ways to avoid the inevitable. And then us failing over and over again to do that, right? So I think that's one thing. It's like we acknowledge our suffering, and then we realize, oh, the suffering's going to keep happening. And I don't say that to be negative. I mean, like, that's life.
It's life.
Life is
It's a part of
messy.
life.
Yeah. But what we can do is avoid being mean to ourselves on top of the inevitable suffering, right? So then it's like, okay, how do we build skills for that? Like, how do we start to recognize maybe, like, we're not broken and wrong. Maybe everyone is also enduring hard things all the time. And we stop isolating. And so I think that breaking through isolation is a really crucial part of taking that leap, as you framed it, like building connection and community and collective understanding around hardship, and that other people share in your experiences, see and validate your experiences, you know, then I think that opens us up again to more self-compassion. It's like you kind of keep on having to open the next door that allows you to kind of deepen yourself into the practice, you know what I mean? Without spiraling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's so beautiful, because I feel like so many people jump into self-development thinking that we're going to like meditate our way through the suffering until it no longer exists. And we're going to do it by ourselves. Right? And really, it's
say,
like we need to feel validated and valued and seen by others, because it helps us validate and value and see ourselves. And that's, for some reason, that's like frowned upon in certain circles these days, instead of something that's being encouraged and celebrated. So I think that's so important to mention, is like, if you really want to develop more self-compassion and connection with self, make sure you're around other people who are doing the same thing and who can hold space for you during that process.
It makes so much sense. Like, we don't heal completely in isolation. There are parts of our healing that, we might be alone for, but for the collective healing, for, moving through that journey, that process of healing, we need other people. And I think it's just that all or nothing thinking you were talking about, Tyler, when you said, like, in some circles it's frowned upon to want that validation from others. Because, yes, no one wants to live their whole lives only getting validation from others.
Only needing it, yeah.
And not being able to validate ourselves. But there is something about the reciprocity that comes from community and relationships when you can look at someone and say, hey, I see you. I understand what you're going through. You're not crazy. I get it. I'm here for you. And then there will come a time when you may have to be that same voice to that person or to another person. So community, it's one of the pillars of WeShape is community, because you can't heal from this stuff that we're swimming in every single day, this toxic diet culture. You just can't do it by yourself. It's impossible, because we're inundated with it day in and day out. So if you don't have other people reminding you, validating you, encouraging you, supporting you, I don't know how you would do that. I don't know how you would heal from this stuff and get to a place of, like, deep self-awareness, deep self-compassion, deep respect for your body and for who you are. I couldn't have done this alone, like, by any means. So I don't know how anyone would.
Yeah, I fully agree. And to piggyback on that as well, I think that, at least this is my own experience. In my own story, I remember there was a moment where I was really struggling with processing some pain and grief from childhood. And I was gonna process that pain and grief by myself. I was gonna handle it. And there was a moment where my wife was like, hey, what's going on? And I kind of shared with her what I was experiencing. And she just kind of gave me a hug and said, I'm so sorry you didn't get the love you needed. And in that moment, I recognized why I couldn't heal that is because I didn't know how to offer that. I didn't know what the feeling of offering love to myself felt like. Yeah. And so when someone else offers that to you, you can feel the feeling that you're trying to learn how to feel. Yeah. And then you can start to repeat that and integrate it into your life. And all of a sudden, you don't need the person there anymore to offer that to you. But it's almost like we learn how to love ourselves when someone else can offer us that same love, right? And it should start when we're children. Unfortunately, it doesn't for most of us.
It doesn't, yeah.
And, you said something there that's so important, which is, like, it can be easier, not always, not for everyone, but I would say generally it is easier to access self-compassion when you've had it modeled for you. Absolutely. So if you didn't grow up in a home where it was modeled for you, where love wasn't shown in that way, where emotions maybe weren't talked about, where feelings weren't validated, if you came from a culture of, push through, work harder, how did you contribute to this problem, right? Like, then you are not accustomed to that skill, to practicing that skill. You have instead a skill of self-blame, of, these are also skills. Like, I think we have to remember that, like self-judgment is a skill we developed. We're not born with that, right? So I think it's also giving ourselves, ironically, more compassion if we weren't brought up in a home where that was the environment, and having to, in your case, it sounded like that moment your wife gave you compassion and she modeled compassion for you in that moment. And that can give us, it's like, I think it's in those moments where we are opened up in that way that we can see, like, whoa, maybe I need more of this.
Totally. Totally. Or, whoa, I didn't know this existed.
Yeah, this is a thing.
Oh, yeah,
that felt good,
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that people understand everything you've ever been through. We're talking about the community and the collective power. And I don't think anyone can ever fully understand someone else's experience, to be in your own body and going through the life you've lived. Like, no one's going to understand that. But I always tell my clients, like, I sit with them and I'm like, I will sit here until I understand as much as I possibly can, but I will also just promise that I believe you. And I think that's all any of us really needs, is like, we just need to be believed in the experience we're having, you know?
Yeah. I love that, because I've done a handful of retreats and stuff over the years now. And what I've always found interesting is that when you pair up with a complete stranger and you share something super vulnerable and from the heart with that stranger, and they say nothing except for thank you for sharing, and they just stay present and open-eyed with you, it's like incredibly healing. It's an incredible experience to feel seen and to feel heard. And then we enter back into our world of cell phones and social media and craziness, and we start to realize how few people are genuinely present. It drives me crazy.
It will drives me crazy too. And then it's also like, it's my value in life is compassion. Like, it's just everything to me. But you just described exactly what I meant when I said acknowledging our own suffering. Like, we can offer that to ourselves. Like what you just said, like a stranger looking you in the eye and saying that, like, that is what we need to do for ourselves. Like, that's when the leap starts happening, for us to say, oh my gosh, this is hard. So sorry you went through that. I believe you. I believe what you're feeling. Because how often in our life have we like gaslit ourselves for the experience we're having, right? Like, oh, maybe it's not this tough. Everybody else is going through this and they're okay. Everyone else is dealing with this, but
so-and-so has it way harder than me.
Yeah,
that part.
Exactly.
It could be worse.
So my pain's not real because their pain is worse.
We don't trust our own pain.
No, we don't.
And that's it, like, how can we ever offer ourselves kindness if we are so distrustful of the experience we're having?
It's because we're stuck in comparison, right? Like, I think of one thing I try to teach my children is like, everyone's greatest pain is their greatest pain. And that doesn't matter what the experience is. And it's the moment that we compare those that we lose connection with ourselves. And so if you can just feel like what you're feeling and not create that distance from those feelings because someone else is struggling more, then you can actually stay more connected with yourself. And I think that's such an important lesson for people to learn. Like, don't look outside, look inside,
Yeah, 100%. And like, I think we struggle with this with emotions a lot. And I think sometimes using like physical pain as an example can help people. But even then we struggle. But like, Lisa, for you, like doing the work you do as a physical therapist, like I'm sure people come in. I mean, how would you ever know if somebody's 10 out of 10 pain is the same as somebody else's 10 out of 10 pain is the same as your 10 out of 10 pain that they're talking about in their knee? But I know you, and I know you are just going to be like, yeah, I believe you. And let's talk about this, because it doesn't matter. Like, you questioning whether your 10 out of 10 pain is really a 10, like, it doesn't matter.
Like, no, it doesn't matter.
It is for you, right?
Exactly. That experience is unique to every person. And, you're right. My 10 out of 10 is very different from your 10 out of 10. But all that matters is that you think it's a 10 out of 10 for you.
That's it.
And so we have to work on that.
because it's your life.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
It's your life. Yeah. I love that. And I'm so glad you brought up the point of like believing people, like believing them, because I can absolutely think of scenarios where I gaslit myself and like didn't believe the pain or the struggle.
For sure.
I think sometimes too, growing up how I did, very chaotic, very impoverished, I can look at problems today and be like whatever, like I've been through worse, but I haven't, because the thing I'm going through in this moment is not something I've ever experienced before. And I think we have to stop and like show some respect to the fact that we're navigating things every day that, may seem lighter than someone else's struggle or may seem less than what we went through 10, 20 years ago, but it's still suffering and it's still hard and it's still, requiring something from us that maybe we don't even feel like we have to give. So I love the idea of that extension of self-compassion is like believing yourself, believing the sensations you're getting from your body and from your emotions, and respecting that enough to, like, sit there with yourself and offer yourself some kindness and love and do something that helps you feel better, as opposed to, like, brushing it under the rug and saying, like, oh, you've gotten through worse, you'll be fine, it's okay, whatever.
Stockpile that for later.
Like,
It'll come back around.
It'll come back around, gosh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you can, like, it's exactly it, like, believing yourself, and you can microdose. You can microdose that. Like, but I mean, that's the beauty of doing something as seemingly simple but complex for a lot of people as honoring your hunger. Like, that's believing your body. Or like feeling tired and resting instead of forcing yourself to do some workout you had on your calendar. That's believing yourself. That is believing your body, right? Like, we can actually practice that multiple times a day in all of these little experiences. Oh, you have to pee? Why don't you get up from your computer and go pee and not hold it for the next hour, right? Like, we can do that in little moments, So it doesn't have to be, I tend to be like I'm a very, like, for better or worse, often worse, I'm a very philosophical person. But I think it helps to kind of make these really tangible things we can do every day to actually like build self-compassion as a muscle,
Yeah.
And it's in those little things,
Yeah. We talked about that earlier. These little things, but they're the big things.
Yeah, right?
They're the things that impact our everyday, like eating and going to the bathroom. Extremely important. And breathing, right? Like, don't hold your breath, honey. It's, yeah, I love it.
I love the building the self-compassion as a muscle, because I think that everything we do as humans is learned through repetition, and the more opportunities we have, no matter how small, the more we can do that. And I also love what you kind of alluded to there, because I think of this term self-connection, and we talk about it a lot. And I think sometimes terms are hard because it just, like, words mean different things to different people. And some people hear self-connection and it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, I know me or whatever. But like, self-belief is another way to put it. Yeah. Are you listening to yourself? Are you believing what your body's telling you? That you're hungry, you're tired, you have to go pee, like, you're sad, you're lonely, whatever it may be. I think that there's so much opportunity there to just listen and believe and nurture yourself, and hopefully develop that better self-connection that way. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
that might be the most important muscle.
It might. Make a little
if you're gonna do a workout, work out that self-compassion.
That part.
I wanted to tackle. Sorry, go ahead. No,
go ahead.
Keep going.
Oh no, I was going to say, like, just in line with that, like, just to kind of maybe tie a bow around this. It's like, if you're struggling with how to do this, really think about what it means to feel connected in a relationship, right? Like, it's not all this external shit. It's like, it is communication, it's listening, it's showing up when you said you're going to show up, it's believing, it's validating, it's building trust with small acts of respect and kindness every day, millions of times a day, right? And so if you ever feel lost on how to build more self-trust, more connection with yourself, more compassion for yourself, it is really thinking about, well, how would I do this in a relationship? Because the more we try to control our experience, the less trust we have, right? Like, we don't control things if we trust them. We don't control other people if we trust them.
Oh my God.
Right? Like, and that's something to deepen into when we feel disconnected, is like, ooh, what am I controlling here?
Yeah, I love that. That definitely tied us back to the beginning. Yes. And I hate to go this direction, but I gotta touch it, because I just feel like this third point here is something that I see people struggle with in this post that I read at the beginning. And I think it kind of ties into what we're talking about, because when we have this sense of what should be, that's when we often find a lack of sense of connection with self and with our ability to, like, acknowledge that suffering. And the third thing you wrote on here is bodies are meant to change. And I feel like I constantly see people stuck in the belief that when I was this and I should be this and I should. And as someone who's sustained a fair amount of pretty horrible injuries, there's a lot of points in my journey where I had to go like, oh, like that's no longer something I can do.
Right.
And that's like hard for people to go through that, you know? And I'm just curious, like, how do you help people really understand that like your body is meant to change? It's not meant to be what you think it should be. It's meant to change.
Well, I think this is deeply connected to different systems of oppression in our society, right? Like I think that so many systems profit off of the belief that we should never change. And if we do, that we need to fix it, right? So like aging, massive industry around that, right? And this anti-aging rhetoric out there, but also weight stigma and anti-fat bias, right? And injuries, ableism. I mean, it's pretty pervasive. And if you think about it, like all of that is like making money off of the inevitable. Like bodies will change. If you are lucky enough to age, you are going to experience a changing body over and over and over and over again. And like that's inescapable. And I think this goes back to what I was saying earlier about like understanding that we're not building self-compassion or healing the relationship we have with ourselves to like never experience hard things again. Just like we're not working on our relationship with our body and our body image to like suddenly wake up one day and never have a negative thought about our body again or never experience a changing body again. I see a lot of people who come to work with me and they say, you know, I want to learn to quote unquote eat intuitively. And I don't really prescribe to that specific like exact way of kind of thinking about eating, but they want it because they're tired of their body changing. They're like, well, maybe I just want my weight to just stabilize, right? Yeah. Lisa, you get this one.
They're using it as a new diet, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm just sick of my body changing. Like, yeah, I don't want the yo-yo anymore. I just kind of want to get to a place where my body just is what it, you know, it's going to be. And it's like, well, you know, that is never going to be a thing, you know, because the body changes. That is the maybe only guarantee in life, right? Like change. And the body, the body will change, right? Aging, all of these things influence it. And so I think if we can, I mean, going back to the community thing, if we as a collective force can start sharing and acknowledging that we are all going through these things, that it is not a symptom of wrongdoing or failure or that this is just the way of human bodies, that I think we can all start to reorient ourselves around this idea that like it is okay for our body to change and they're meant to change. And I think this is the harder part because even if we get to a point where we're like, okay, my body's meant to change, it's okay. I think we can get stuck if we feel resistance or pain, like either physical or emotional pain when that change happens, right?
Yep.
We can be like, well, fuck this. Sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay. We can be like, fuck this. This isn't working. You know, like my body's changing and it's just I just can't handle it. So I need to fix this. I need to go on a diet or whatever. And I think it's also normalizing that change is uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Like, it is uncomfortable. Like, it's not because your body's gaining weight necessarily or because you, whatever. It's like you live in this skin and bones. Like, if there's a change in it, whether it's an illness, whether it's an injury, whether it's a chronic condition, whether it's depression, whether it's your weight changes, whatever it is, there's going to be an adjustment period. Like, I think that that's something we have to normalize too. Like, because then otherwise we just blame it on our body why we're suffering in that moment. But I think we have to remember change of any kind, including this home that we live in, is going to be a little bit jarring.
Right.
It's going to take time to get used to it, you know? And so I think that's another thing that can really help us. Like, even if we wrap our mind around the inevitability of the changes, like understanding that there's going to have to be some new accommodations or different ways of being, when that body changes.
And you're not
Acceptance,
failing
right?
if you don't realize, like if you struggle with that, like that's,
Right.
Yeah.
I think chronic illness has helped me a lot with this because it's put me in moments where I didn't know it would happen
yeah.
for me. And I think like we have to acknowledge the loss and the grief inherent in body changes too, whether it's sickness or something else, like that we're incurring losses, but that we're also gaining something. And I don't mean this in like a toxic positive way, like, but we are gaining something. We're gaining life. We're gaining a new way of seeing things. Even though we're also losing some things in the process, but that's life. I think like every day we live, we're losing and we're gaining,
Absolutely.
you know? But I think if you can remember that, again, I think I said in there, like your body is not your life's purpose or its project.
Yeah.
It's just this vessel. And that's why you're here. You get to be here because you're in this vessel. And
It's
so
our
care
meat
for
suit.
it. Yeah. Care for it. Right. But, gosh, please constantly pull yourself out of the rabbit hole that we're sold that like you're supposed to control it. And that's what your life is about. Because it's not, you know, it's just not.
I love that. You're worthy just as you are.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, Abbie, thank you so much for being on our show yet again and for that wonderful conversation. That was really fun. Where can our followers find you?
Mostly in terms of like my podcast is the Full Plate Podcast. So if you're a podcast listener, which you probably are, if you're listening, you can find me on that every week. And then I'm on Instagram most of the time, social media wise, and my website where you can find out about like group programs. Speaking of community, I think that's like just a really powerful way to do any of this. So my website, abbieattwoodwellness.com, and I'm Abbie Attwood Wellness on Instagram.
Thank you so much, Abbie, for your time.
Thank
Appreciate
you
you sharing your
both.
wisdom with us.
Thank you.